Just ahead on this special holiday edition of American Black Journal, we're going to take a look back at some of my guests in 2018, including Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, Snoop Dogg, and Flint Mayor Karen Weaver. Stay right there. American Black Journal is next.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, Craft Made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
For nearly 100 years, Ally has been a part of Detroit, and we give back by volunteering and donating in our community. We have a commitment to diversity and increasing economic mobility in our hometown. At Ally, we're dedicated to doing it right every single day.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. We are wrapping up another year of bringing you engaging conversations on this program. Today, we're taking a look back at some of our guests in 2018. We start with discussions about blacks in the media with local journalists, race relations in America with Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, a roundtable on President Donald Trump, and a wide-ranging interview with rapper Snoop Dogg. So let's start with the big question here. 50 years later, where are we? Where are we in terms of minority presence in media, but also, as we saw in the clip, where are we in terms of minority decision making? And I think that is a really different question from that first one. Vicki?
And that's the important question to ask, and unfortunately, dismal numbers in terms of upper management. These are the folks who make the decisions on how communities of color are covered, and not enough minorities are at the table. NABJ does a diversity census. The last one was done in 2012 by our former president, Bob Butler, and he found that there were like 12% of management up in newsrooms, and at that time the population of minorities was about 35%, so you can see the disparity there. So we have a long way to go, definitely.
Luther, you were an editor at the Detroit News. One of the people I sort of claim as a role model for my career.
Claim that on me?
You're a little older than I am. But things were different when you were coming up than they were when I was coming up, but we still are kind of in the same place.
I think somebody who started my journalism career back in the 70s, when, if you saw the movie The Post, we actually worked on typewriters when I started. So, but I look at it like this. We aren't where we were. We aren't where we should be. We lost momentum, as we heard Cliff Russell say in that clip. In the 90s, there's a point in time when affirmative action was a good thing. I would go to the AASC conventions or NABJ national conventions, and there was this great buzz of excitement about diversity. Then we hit some economic hard times, and people start peeling staffs back, and black folks got hit hard, and minorities got hit hard. And I think, quite frankly, that we've lost it as a priority with other things that have come along. But I think this is a good time to refocus.
I think the ideal of a self-sustaining black society, a kind of black utopia, it's great for Wakanda.
The films, right? It works on
right, Wakanda, whatever. But, you know, it would be tough in the real spaces we occupy not to intersect with, you know, white spaces. Now, when we sustained all black spaces, when we were forced to, when segregation imposed edicts of restriction so that apartheid prevailed, white water fountain, black school, white school, black neighborhoods, white neighborhoods. We have de facto segregation. We have, you know, harshly imposed restraints upon people's mobility, but that's not an ideal situation. You know, when Mr. Gilbert comes in to the inner city, awash with cash and flush with ambition to retake the skyline of Detroit and so many of its buildings, and to re-territorialize the urban demography of a city like Detroit, then marginal people are pushed further out It used to be that suburbia was for white folk in Detroit, the collar counties. When I lived through the riot of 1967, and even though that wasn't the only instigating factor, it was one that pushed them out, that is white brothers and sisters, to those collar counties. Black people left in these urban enclaves, and now the opposite is occurring. You know, white folk are rushing back into the city and taking over space and the like, and black people are being pushed out. So there's no safe and stable black space that we can occupy, and it becomes extremely important, therefore, for the spaces we are forced or asked to interact with, right, need to be more friendly.
I don't expect anything better out of a Donald Trump, and I don't expect anything better out of a Omarosa. Both of them are off the charts nuts. And I really hate that we have to spend time when we could be talking about issues, speaking about these two people, but they are commanding the news cycle. And so, but I just think it needs to be said that these two people are unlike anyone else. They're not normal, so we can't talk about them in normal terms.
Well, but at the same time,
go ahead, Kerry.
But on American Black Journal, the reason that we need to talk about them is because they've got an opportunity to have done so much more for the black community, especially Omarosa, because you need to understand, I was on those calls when all of the African-American Republicans that had plenty of experience, when we were looking for who's going to help shepherd us into the new administration, she got on the call, she said, send me the resume, everything, and clearly what she did is threw all that stuff in the trash.
Did you bow down to her? Had you already bowed down to her? You knew what kind of a nut you were dealing with when you were on the phone. You used the avenue you had to use, but you clearly, as a man of intelligence, you were clear what you were dealing with. She said you were going to bow down.
Let's be very clear. The expectation was short from the start. The bottom line is, I mean, anytime, you know, working for an elected official, photo ops are things that politicians want. The real question would have been, how many contracts are we going to get? How many ambassadorships for 47 African countries that are still unfilled are we going to fill? Whether it's Omarosa, whether it's the pastors that came out, that should have been the real conversation. What they were really talking about. Come take a picture and Omarosa's going to help you walk out the White House.
Isn't it important if she has this tape that she says she has of Donald Trump using the N-word, which there's been rumors about that for a long time.
I mean, who would be surprised if they actually caught him on tape saying the N-word?
I mean, there's a difference, though, between thinking about that or hearing about that, and then I think actually
What's the difference between that and grab her by the, and I can't say the word? There's literally no difference.
Yeah.
I mean, and as a, I'm black before I'm a feminist. Everybody knows that. So I get, you don't have to explain to me the historical difference. But I'm talking about the seismic difference. His supporters do not care.
Let's go back to 25 years ago, Doggy Style, still one of my favorite albums, a huge hip-hop album. And you say that this was a part of you that was not reflective of the way you were brought up. I'm not sure everybody knows that.
Well, you know, my mother raised me in the church, so you would have thought that I would have been making gospel music based off of my upbringing, but slowly but surely I became, you know, invested in the community, in the streets, in the hood, so my music was depicting what I was around and what I was being, you know, introduced to. So despite that, I always had, you know, God in my music and everywhere I went. So for me to make the full, you know, 360 and put out a gospel album last year and then do this play Redemption of a Dog, which is secular and gospel based, it's a full culmination of who I am.
At the same time, that album, I mean, it launches your career, and you've had a really interesting career. It's not just hip hop. It's not just music. You're doing all these other things, and so talk about how that curiosity. I feel like you're somebody who feeds his curiosity with work. That you get to different spaces through the work.
Well, what it is with me is if I like, or if I feel like something is fun, I'm gonna challenge myself and try to do it, or try to at least get into the conversation of thinking about doing it. And I feel like the worst thing you can do is to think about something and not try to complete it. So I try to complete every thought that I have, and sometimes it's strange and it's crazy, you know, to do a game show, then do a show with Martha Stewart, to do a show based off of animals, to do a football show, to just keep doing things that make me feel good. If it feels good to me, it must be good for me.
Right. It was so much fun hosting those conversations. We'll have more show highlights from this year in just a few minutes, but first we continue our look back at this program over the last 50 years. Here's a 1991 Detroit Black Journal segment about all-male academies in Detroit.
There's been a lot of controversy over the all-male academy. Here's an excerpt from a former DBJ where we spoke with the local initiators. Obviously, we all know there's some very real numbers in terms of explaining the kinds of problems that we're confronting in the black community, particularly with young black males. Let's take a look at some of those numbers. I believe this was from the New Detroit Report, 1987. More than 600 youths arrested in Detroit, almost twice as many young people as 1986. 30% of the Detroit graduates did not receive endorsed diplomas, and of course we know that's because also the dropout rate was so high that when we talk about 30%, estimates range from 42 to 65% for the dropout rate for Detroit Public Schools students that never even got to that point to receive a diploma. And then in 1988, the national black youth unemployment rate was 37%, but locally non-white unemployment was 53.2%.
And it takes men to be men and men to teach men how to be men. Ironically, the proposal for Project Mystery was developed by 2 women, but even they had the foresight and vision to understand that it would be more appropriate to have a man administer that program and work with, and there was a need to recruit men to serve in that capacity. Let me go on to say this. I think that in our community, we used to have an extended community, if you would, an extended family in the community. I can recall when I was growing up, my father, for example, left home when I was 11 years old, but there were a couple of men who just stepped in and just took that responsibility. One in particular, his name was Eugene Ford, who just kind of took me under his wing and adopted me to be his own son. But there was a man on my block named Rudolph Nelson, and Rudolph Nelson was married and had 6 kids and worked every day. And but Rudolph Nelson came home every day and was a father to every male black child on that block who didn't have a father.
I started a dropout prevention program on Saturday at Peck Elementary. It was the only one in the country. Part and parcel to that program was a mentoring program that we had for African American males. And a part of that was a sports program. As you probably well know, young African American males identify very strongly with sports. I use that in the sense I use it from the standpoint to motivate them to do well in academics. What we're talking about in the development of this academy is to develop a strong curricular program whereby our young men, one, will be able early on to be exposed to African American history, physics. People don't think they can learn physics, algebra, strong science curriculum, and a very competitive sports program that we do not have in the Detroit Public Schools, in the elementary and middle schools as they have in suburban school districts. But once again, use it as a carrot and say, here's some conditions. You must have a 2-point average or better, as opposed to waiting until the 11th grade.
American Black Journal took on several topics important to the African American community this year. Here are clips from conversations about the Flint water crisis, black families building business legacies, getting out the vote, and all-stars giving back to the community. How important is it to you as somebody who grew up here, had an enormous amount of success that took you to all kinds of other places, but you're still here and you're still involved?
Well, it's my DNA. Yeah. You know, again, it's been embedded in me my whole life through my family, you know, and I just feel that we have to share our relationships and our experience with our kids. So when I look at a kid, I see me, you know, wide-eyed, trying to figure it out, don't know what to do, but I also have resources and relationships to help me through that process. And that's what we're doing. We're just giving back to show kids that, hey, we understand your struggles and what you're going through, but we're also here to help you.
Do you feel like things are tougher for kids growing up in the city now than they were for you? Really, you do?
Yes, I do. I just say, I'm glad I didn't grow up in the social media era.
Yeah, well, right.
You know, because a lot of kids, try to really emulate on social media who they really are, and that's not them at all. Wow. You know, so that's a sad part that we're going through, but the mental side of it, and then just the lack of social services that our kids face day in and day out. Yeah. You know, so we're here to just try to provide some of those services for those kids, but again, it takes a village no matter what we do.
Yeah. that retreat of social service. I mean, I was talking earlier this week with somebody about what the city was like when I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, and all the things that we had that you could go do, even if you didn't have any money, even if you lived in the projects. There was a rec center that had summer leagues and a pool. You learned to swim, all of that stuff.
But you know what, Stephen, man, poverty is not just about money. It limits access to people that can help you. So if those people are no longer there, now you look at your options are slim. What are you going to do for free time? Social media now makes you think, well, I want to emulate that lifestyle. I want this car. I want this. It plays into your social image. So that's, you got to have adults in your life. Their success, the success of children is predicated on adult participation. Who's going to stand in the gap? Who's going to love that young person past their pain? It's not enough for you to like them. You got to love these young people and believe in them that all children can learn, that all children can be successful. And once you are successful, we demand that you be significant.
We got marijuana on the ballot. We got promoting the vote on the ballot. We got Wayne County Community College District on the ballot. We got ending gerrymandering on the ballot, which is when we vote. In various districts, we're losing based upon the way these lines are drawn. People thinking that if they pass this marijuana piece that I can be driving down the street and getting high. No, you can't do that. It's going to have a negative impact on our children. It's going to increase your car insurance. Check the record out. Be very clear about this. And the fact we need to protect our vote. This is not trick-or-treat politics. This is not Halloween. You know, Halloween, Steve, they say trick-or-treat. But folk have been getting the treats while we get the tricks.
They get the tricks,
and we don't want that. We want this to be straight up clear so that our people can vote, protect it, and it means something.
Yeah. One of the other things that is going to change voter experience in Detroit is the fact that we don't have straight ticket this time for the first time in a really long time.
And why don't we have that?
And we have that long ballot.
And we have that. And because somebody in Lansing, the boys, made a decision, well, this is the way we can eliminate and reduce the vote. And they're counting on you to be discouraged by that. They're counting on you to be frustrated by having to stand in line and to exercise your choice. Don't be discouraged. Don't turn around. If it rains, if it snows, get out and take your souls to the polls. They're counting on you not to vote. They're counting on you to say, it's too long, I'm going home. They're counting on Stephen Henderson to say, the hell with this, I'm not going to, can I say hell on?
Yeah, you can say.
Okay, it's in the Bible.
You're good.
And so what I'm simply saying, they're counting on you to be discouraged. I'm simply saying, don't go for the okie doke. Don't go for Halloween. This is not trick or treat. Don't go for the hypocrisy. Go for and vote for the democracy.
So talk about the father-daughter team, how important that is, and whether that is the key to, I guess, making sure that the business stays in the family.
Okay. Back in 1946, my father was a Tuskegee Airman. After he was discharged from the United States Army Air Force, he migrated to Detroit, Michigan, where he started the Mage Printing Company. My father always said when he came to Detroit, he started his business on the back of a streetcar. He would ride from Jefferson all the way to 8 Mile Road, and that was his office.
Right. That works, right?
Yes. And what he always told me is that I'm building this company for you.
For you, yeah.
And my children, and my children's children. Okay? And he delivered on the actual promise. He sent all of his children to college, pay for them himself. In the back of a print shop, setting type by hand and working all day and night.
Wow.
By saying that, I continue the actual promise that my father gave me. And I passed the torch over to all 5 of my children, and they all have college degrees. Okay? So,
and that's kind of a first step, right? You can't really pass the business on easily to people who are not ready to run it.
Right. Now, what my father used to always say, and people used to ask him, how did you get your son to join the business? He said, I did not deny my son his childhood.
Huh.
I let him play baseball. Go to the YMCA, swim, Boy Scout, Cub Scout, like, etc. So when the decision came, I made it on my own.
You did it on your own. That's interesting.
And was not forced.
Yeah.
Which is important.
Did you experience that same thing?
You know, it's so crazy. Yes and no. So I definitely grew up in the family business. As a child, I remember, you know, listening to the presses run, seeing my father and my grandfather handle business and, you know, take care of their staff. So when I was in college, I actually went to school for film. And in the midst of me being in my second year of college, my father said, get a degree in printing. And I'm like, well, why? And he said, because you never know when you might need it. So I listened and I took my degree. So when I graduated from college, my father was telling me that it was time to pass the business over. And luckily I was prepared. I grew up, you know, pretty fast. My mom had lost her sight when I was a little younger. So I kind of took on like a lot of adult responsibilities at that time, which kind of was slowly but surely molding me. And of course, being in the operation and knowing what it's like the day to day, you know, taking over the family business really wasn't even a hard decision. And luckily I did have my degree in it, so I had knowledge. You know, a lot of children go straight into the family business. It may not necessarily have any book knowledge. They only have kind of, I don't want to say street knowledge, but you know, in shop knowledge. They've seen it, but it took me to another level to really understand the education behind it, and I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I did. So he definitely prepared us.
I know you you know this because of the industry you work in, but I feel like the city would be a different place if more African American businesses were able to extend that legacy further. I mean, you think of the opportunities in construction, for instance. Think of all the stuff we're doing in the city right now, and that we talk about participation all the time. That would be an easier question to solve if there were more businesses that had maintained that legacy.
There are quite a few African-American-owned businesses in the city of Detroit, and I know quite a few construction-related subcontractors, prime contractors have done very well. And I should say that, you know, over our 29-year history, we've had a lot of and enjoyed a lot of support from the city of Detroit under the Shelter Marker Program, Executive Order number 4. A lot of that has been, you know, dismantled now, if you will, under Proposal 2 and passed in 2006. You can no longer have any race or gender-based contracting or education things going on. So it's going to be a little bit hard. And I told my son he's probably not going to enjoy the same opportunities that I've enjoyed.
That you did.
But hopefully he will continue to do well based on the fact that we've done a great job over the years and we've developed a great reputation.
We had some news recently that I think can only be described as a setback in the efforts to try to make this right. Talk about what happened and what effect it's having.
So I think you're talking about the stopping of the bottled water by the governor. Yes, that's exactly what happened. And I think it was a bad decision by the governor to do that. And what he said was the water is testing good, so you don't need it anymore. And one of the things I said to him is, I'm aware of the test results we're getting. I mean, you know, why wouldn't I be paying attention to that? And they are better, you know, and we're glad they're better. Who wouldn't want good water? I mean, everybody deserves it. Why wouldn't we want good test results? I said, but our fight is, we have not finished with the lead service line replacement. We're almost halfway through. And one of the things we were told, and EPA has not changed their stance, was that when you're doing that amount of construction across your city, that those old pipes, lead particulates can break off and get into the system. And so we still have to be able to protect ourselves. It's still a public health issue. And so that was why it was so important for the bottled water distribution to stay in place. The other thing was the test results we were getting back from the schools. 90% of the results were good, but 10% we were still getting very high results in our schools. And the third thing was, it's a matter of trust. You gave your word. You said that those pods would stay open indefinitely until we got through the replacement of those bad pipes. And we knew it was only going to be, at longest, a 3-year process. And to, you know, do that, you know, I could have gone with things are better. Maybe you don't need as much bottled water. We can go from 8 cases a day to 4 cases. We can go from 4 water distribution sites to 2. But they needed to stay in place because we still have families where the pipes haven't been changed.
Where the pipes aren't changed?
And while we can argue that the water tests good, we have homes that test high because the in-home plumbing, the the fixtures have been damaged as a result.
There's all kinds of residual effects of this that still mean people don't have clean water.
Exactly.
Michelle Wolf, the comedian.
Thank you, Michelle Wolf.
At the Correspondents' Dinner, the last thing she said is, Flint still doesn't have clean water, and that's still true.
Well, like I said,
in some cases.
In some cases, because like I said, it may test good, but if your pipes haven't been changed, if you've got plumbing that has been destroyed, there's still an issue.
We hope you've enjoyed watching American Black Journal this year. I also hope you know how much it means to me to be your host and to bring you this important content each week. You can see all episodes at AmericanBlackJournal.org. We're going to be back in 2019 to bring you more thought-provoking conversations. All of us at American Black Journal and Detroit Public Television wish you a very happy new year. We'll see you next time.
As American Black Journal looks ahead at the next 50 years, we want to hear from you, the viewers. Tell us what you think of this program and what you'd like to see on future episodes. Visit AmericanBlackJournal.org to take a quick survey and share your opinion. Thank you.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, Craft-Made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
For nearly 100 years, Ally has been a part of Detroit, and we give back by volunteering and donating in our community. We have a commitment to diversity and increasing economic mobility in our hometown. At Ally, we're dedicated to doing it right every single day.